Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Today is August 12th, 2021, and the following is the 690th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place via Google Meets. I'm Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge.
Present.
Commissioner Garay.
Present.
Commissioner Olson.
Present.
Thank you. It is 10 a.m. and I hand this over to Chair Coolidge.
Thank you, ma'am. I call this meeting to order. We're just going to jump right into things today.
Mr. Chair, I do have one request. We do have somebody that signed to speak on the F3, Mr. Peterson, and his. I know his time is valuable, so I was wondering if either we could move that up to the top or schedule him for the next meeting down the road with it being scheduled at the beginning.
I don't see a problem with expediting that. Let's move to F3. Mr. Peterson, go ahead with your track maintenance report.
Okay, thank you for adjusting the schedule. I know that's difficult.
Yes, sir.
My name is Mick Peterson. I'm a professor of agricultural engineering at University of Kentucky. I also serve as executive director of the Racing Surfaces Testing Laboratory. The Racing Surfaces Testing Laboratory is a 501c3 nonprofit focused on education and testing for track surfaces and safety. It was formed in 2008 from donations from Churchill Downs, NYRA, Dolly Green Foundation, NTRA, and the Jockey Club. All work we do is in the public domain, and the focus is on track material testing. In 2019, there was a gift from the Jockey Club to expand operations, including the purchase of a company that does on-track testing and characterization. So the initial focus of the Racing Surfaces Testing Laboratory was on testing the actual material on the track. Now we actually do the entire process, which that includes taking over what we call the maintenance quality system. I was invited today to talk a little bit about the maintenance quality system as a way to systematically provide confidence in the surface. It's also very timely because the NTRA Safety and Integrity Alliance rewrote their surfaces section, their surface standards section, and the surface standards section now, obviously it doesn't require using the maintenance quality system, but it actually goes through the same steps. And as a part of the Horse Racing Integrity Safety Act, this may become particularly relevant to a lot of the tracks because they reference in the HISA, they reference the Safety Integrity Alliance. It's really a three-step process. I compare it to like the way the FAA certifies a plane. When we first start working with the track, we just understand the equipment, the geometry, the weather, and the target composition. I know the Arizona tracks over the years. I've known several of the superintendents. I've known several of the consultants, and there's a lot of competence there. And so we don't start out saying what to do. We ask, what are you doing now, and document that. This is really very consistent with more of a regulatory structure because it's not telling you how to do it, it's asking you to document things. I can kind of say it's more like an ISO process. We have separate steps that we go through for the dirt and turf. There's no synthetic tracks in Arizona, but we do those as well. The second step of the process is every race meet, or for racetracks that have year-round racing seasonally, we test the composition. So in the first stage, we set the composition targets. We then test the composition, compare it to that. We do biomechanical surface testing, which replicates the loads and rates and speed on the horse, and the ground penetrating radar. This is really kind of a pre-flight inspection. This is the stuff that's, you're sitting there in the tarmac, and you want to take off, and this is going through that pre-flight checklist. Our attitude towards the racetrack is it's got the health and safety of the riders as well as the horses at risk, and that it needs to be prepared for use just like you would prepare an airplane for a flight. This is the part that was expanded dramatically by a gift from the Jockey Club in 2019, and we're now in the process of pre-positioning equipment in different locations around the country so that we can respond more quickly and more efficiently. And there's processes for both dirt and turf. finally, the last part of it, and probably the most difficult part of it, is daily tracking and measurements. On a dirt track, the key measurements are moisture and cushion depth, just making sure it's graded properly, and cushion depth measurements. For tracks that don't have the resources of the Naira or the Oakland or the Santa Anita, what's done is this can be done manually with it's just a probe and then a moisture sensor, and then it can be written down. But it's so key to having these proper measurements. Now, what we find on this is probably the part that becomes the most difficult, because if the consistency of the moisture is not even, it's incredibly difficult to improve it. Certainly with the climate in Arizona, that becomes quite a big challenge, but that's probably the most important thing you can do for the safety of the horse and rider, is that day-to-day maintenance. And at this point, what we're doing also for the tracks that are more sensitive to the labor costs, we're providing more automation, but there's more manual testing, and it all depends on the length of your race meet, which you prefer, which makes sense. So the overall philosophy of this is best practices. We need to be able to have the data to learn and improve. I guess probably some of our biggest successes, and again, it's pre-race exams, it's veterinary practices, it's consistent trainer attention to the issues, but that's how we can reduce catastrophic injuries. But the surfaces work, it's consistency, not only day to day at the track, but between different tracks that the horses are traveling between. And that's really our objective of this whole process. And obviously you can see where this fits very well into kind of the framework that the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act is looking at. So I wanted to keep it brief, and what I will do is I will provide I will provide the Safety Integrity Alliance Code of Standards, the updated 2020 Code of Standards for the surfaces section of that. And then I can also provide some information for people to look at on the maintenance quality system and the process.
That sounds great. Very thorough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you again for adjusting the schedule.
Of course. I didn't realize, Commissioner, you were on there as well. Any other questions from my fellow commissioners?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
None for me.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll run back up to the top. We'll go to B1, 2, and 3, introduction of new departmental staff. Caitlin Caputo, who's the agency counsel, Brian Duncan, the racing division program manager, and Lena Kalkbrenner, the assistant attorney general. So thank you guys for joining, and appreciate and look forward to working with you. We will move over to the executive session items. That's C1. Actually, Ms. Lena, do you have any updates to pursue there?
Actually, it's still Kelly Wagner. I'm here to structure and bring Lena into the meeting here today. I do have updates on this particular issue, so I don't know if you want to handle it now or if you want to put it later in the agenda.
That's great. I move to enter executive session.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion to go into executive session, excuse me, by Mr. Coolidge and seconded by Mr. Garay. So the roll call on this is Commissioner Coolidge.
Yes.
Commissioner Garay.
Yes.
Commissioner Olson.
Yes.
Thank you. The time is 10:09 a.m. This open session is recessed for the executive session. Thank you. Okay. Okay, this is going into the second open session of the 690th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place via Google Meet. Commission Secretary Cassidy Gooden will take roll. Commissioner Coolidge.
Present.
Commissioner Garay.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
Present.
Thank you. We have quorum. And it is, I'm sorry, it is 10:15 a.m.
Thank you. We'll move to item D1. Pursuant to House Bill 2772, the division is requesting commission approval to proceed with a rule change to allow for mobile and internet wagering. Mr. Director, do you have any comments on this before we move forward?
Yes, Commissioner Coolidge and Commission. For the record, my name is Ted Vogt. I'm the Director of the Arizona Department of Gaming. As sort of the agenda item states, contained in HB 2772, which was the fantasy sports event wagering bill that recently passed the legislation. There was a section in there that allows pari-mutuel and simulcast wagering to be placed online and mobile. Also in that legislation was an exemption from the normal rulemaking process to make these changes, and the department has received the exemption from the rulemaking moratorium from the governor's office to go ahead and open up the the horse racing rules for the discrete purpose of going and sort of effectuating the new law. So this item's on here. We're seeking approval and really sort of an endorsement from the commission to go ahead and open the rules to make these changes. We've had some preliminary meetings with stakeholders on the issue. Kind of our plan going forward with once we've got this approval is to go ahead and put our edited horse racing rules out there on Friday, leave the rules up and open up public comment through the weekend and through Monday, and then on Tuesday of next week we would hold a virtual public comment session similar to what we've done with event wagering and fantasy sports, and we feel this is such a small change that we'll be able to make these changes and sync everything up so we can have online pari-mutuel and simulcast wagering up and running at the same time that event wagering goes live in the state, which will be September 9th. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Yeah, I do have one question. I just want to ensure that the greyhounds are not included in this, correct?
Correct. It just has to do with the racing.
Excellent. Okay.
And Dr. Voigt, thank you so much for the explanation. One follow-up question for you is, and this question may also be for council, but with the exception of the rulemaking process, is your proposed kind of notice and comment and forum discretionary, or was that provided for in the bill?
I guess I don't understand your question.
Sure. So the process that you proposed with the notice and comment and then the virtual forum to discuss the rule, was that devised, I suppose, by your office, or was that prescribed by the bill or by another rule?
So what we're proposing, the department has sort of generated, as I mentioned in kind of my comments, the department is exempted from rulemaking, so we don't have to do anything in terms of public comment. But we felt it was important to engage the stakeholders, to get their input, and it's the process that we've utilized as we came up with the event wagering rules and the fantasy sports rules. So we were going to continue it with sort of, again, the revision of these of the racing rules to conform with law.
Great. Thanks so much for that explanation. And so all you need from the commission procedurally is today's vote.
Correct.
Great. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Director, and everyone at the department. I know how much work goes into this process and appreciate everything that you guys have done to move this forward. And just for my fellow commissioners, this is just confirming the rule to state law. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve.
Second. I second it.
Thank you. I got that. I had to unmute. Apologize. So Chair Coolidge made the motion to approve, and Commissioner Gray seconded. Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge.
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes.
Commissioner Olson.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yes, sir. Thank you to the department. D2, Turf Paradise race dates and discussion with the AZHBPA. I think we have a couple of people signed up to speak on this. Actually, why don't we just jump right in with the HBPA? Mr. Hutton, you want to kick us off? Mr. Hutton, are you around? Do we have another signed-in speaker for the HBPA?
Mr. Hutton, you may need to star 6 to unmute your microphone.
Daryl Hare, are you in? Marv Fleming. Kevin Eichelberry.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Who is this?
This is Bob Hutton.
All right, Mr. Hutton, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry, Chuck, about that. Bob Hutton, President, Arizona HBPA. Cassie, can you have them roll the pictures?
Yes, sir. Jason, would you please present?
Okay. I want to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to speak. Let me first say that we currently have no contract with Turf Paradise for the upcoming meet. The HPPA has also received a letter from Mr. Sims and Mr. Claus referencing their intention to run a race meet without a contract. When reading Mr. Sims' letter to the HPPA membership, he used the phrase 21 out of 25 demands. In the HPPA email, Turf Paradise, we never used the word demand. Matter of fact, we chose was request. I also want on the record that I believe it is highly inappropriate for Mr. Sims to write our membership as the HPPA has never written Turf Paradise's employees or his business partners. I see this as an attempt to blame shift or gaslight already sensitive situation. If you review the HPPA email to Turf Paradise, I think we can agree that most of these concerns are issues racetracks in America do as normal business practices. These issues are not something the HPPA believes should have to continuously address with Turf Paradise. If you could refer to AR-19-2-104, it clearly states the permittee will maintain grounds in a neat, clean, and safe condition. This is not a demand by the HPPA, but only the rules that were established to protect the horsemen and the entire industry. The HPPA doesn't want to be in the business of telling Turf Paradise how to run their facility. That is why we have a Department of Racing and a commission. There has been a long history of racing in Arizona. Family businesses, the Owens, the Flemings, the Campos, the McKees, and the Rollins, who have put their hearts and souls in this industry. These families and all the other horsemen who are involved in racing in Arizona need to be treated with honesty, integrity, and professionalism. At this time, Turf Paradise has the property for sale. I find it impossible for horsemen to pay enormous expenses to ship the horses and prepare their stalls under this cloud of uncertainty. The horsemen had to deal with a similar situation when Turf Paradise closed abruptly in March of 2020 with notifying the membership they had to be out within 2 weeks without training their horses. Anyone who has been in the industry knows it is not humane to leave a thoroughbred in a stall for 2 weeks without exercise. At that time in March, no tracks were accepting horses, and that left our horsemen with a very few options. At the same time, Turf Paradise kept their facility open for off-track betting the weekend of March 14th. While Turf Paradise was wanting to evict horsemen because of COVID-19, the OTBs remained open that weekend. These people lived through this situation before, and we cannot allow this to take place again. Being a thoroughbred owner, for the most part, is an expensive hobby. People who accept this responsibility to care for their horses deserve to sit in a clean environment and watch their horses compete. Turf Paradise should be suitable for horsemen and fans to enjoy a day at the races. In Mr. Sims' letter to the HPPA membership, he stated, "Until now, my unwavering goal is to grow horse racing in Arizona and provide superior product to our customers. He also states that the business requires devotion, time, energy, commitment, and passion. We couldn't agree more. But for Mr. Sims to accuse us of interfering when we have been waiting for Turf Paradise to show us these qualities, once again, is gaslighting. Turf Paradise over the years has tried to start a new horsemen's group to undermine the HPPA. You would have to ask him why, but my conclusion is because he doesn't like anyone reminding him of his obligation to the horsemen. To bring this to conclusion, the HPPA doesn't want to tell Turf Paradise how to run their business. We would like a clean and safe facility, and until Turf Paradise is willing to comply with AR-19-2-104, the HPPA is not in support of running a meet there this fall. Thank you, and I'll field any questions.
This is Jerry Sims. I'd like to respond.
Mr. Sims, we have others signed up to speak, and I'll have you respond at the end if you don't mind.
That's fine.
Mr. Weiss, you're signed up?
Yes. You better turn that one off. Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is Michael Weiss. I am currently general manager at Arizona Downs and at Rito Park. I just want to make a quick statement that I am prepared to work with the Arizona HPBA, and that means we, as Arizona Downs and Rito Park, are prepared to work with the Arizona HPBA and the Arizona Department of Gaming to support Arizona racing and Arizona horsemen throughout the entire calendar year. In addition, we do have concepts for review to make Arizona racing thrive in the absence of turf conducting a live race meet, and we'll be ready at a future date of your choosing to discuss such plans, as I don't believe this is the platform to do so at this time. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Sims, go ahead.
Okay, am I unmuted right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd also like my counsel to say a few words after. I don't know where to start. We do what we need to do and do it the best for safety in this on this track. For example, without anybody asking us, we're taking all the material off the main track this year, having it completely down to the base, and lasering it to make sure the banks are exactly right in the straightaways, and then put the material back on. No one asked us to do that. That's something that my general manager, Mr. Mayor, said that we should do this year, and we did it. No one has to. When I got the list of 25 demands, he can call them what he wants to call them. They tell me to switch from Monarch, who I've been with for 21 years, and I must go to NYRA. And NYRA's even against their interests. I don't know if they realize it, but anyway, I don't tell them. I don't go down the shed road and say, you ought to have better horses. We wouldn't have as many breakdowns. Or, you should have one assistant there, groom, with every 5 horses. So if you have 20 horses, 2 is not enough. I don't go down there and tell them how to run their place. They're professionals. They know how to run their business. But I also know how, after 21 years, to run turf. And the trouble with the Horsemen's Group, I've had a number of organizations that deal with us and with the horsemen say that in the entire country, there's no Horsemen's Group as difficult to deal with as the one in Arizona. They, for some reason, they're just, it doesn't matter what I do, good, bad, or indifferent, they're on me. I did not try to start a new group. A new group came forward. They were upset at what the horsemen were doing and said they wanted to start a new group and told me who they were, told Mr. Mayor who they were. That's all. We have no interaction with that. We can run without a contract. I told Mr. Hutton through my general manager that with those demands on the table, we can't meet. And I won't meet. I won't meet with someone that's got a gun to my head with the implied threat they're not going to run their horses. And now I should sit down and negotiate. We'll be happy to meet with them and negotiate a new contract. We can run without a contract. It just means there's some things that they don't get and we don't get. That's fine. But I prefer to have a contract. But if we can't have one, because these demands are out there, he can, like I say, call them what he wants to call them. But they're just, they were a gut punch. I mean, why don't you come talk to us? Why do you, about things that you have, sit down in a negotiation and say, you know, don't you think we know when the starting gate needs new pads and we replace them? We don't need you to tell me when to. I go down their shed rows. I promise you it wouldn't be to perfection, but they run their own business. Anyway, I don't know how to respond to all the things he said, but boy, oh boy, you know. Let me tell you, if we were doing something wrong, then the Department of Racing would say, this isn't safe, that's not safe, and we would make the changes. We always go by what the department tells us, and that's for 21 years we've done that. So some of your complaints should probably go to the department, and they can talk to us, or you can sit and talk to us directly, and we'll address them. But not while there's a threat out there of not racing and so on.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sims. In the interest of time, because we have a massive roster of things to do today, and you have two other people from Turf Paradise. I'm going to spend some time with Scott Claus and Dave Johnson, but I would advise, let's make sure that we are staying on the agendized item of race dates and the discussion. And if we can not talk about old things, so let's make sure we stay on pace there. So, Mr. Claus, I'll give you the floor first. Let's, Madam Secretary, would you assign 3 minutes to each, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. Thank you, members of the Commission. I will address briefly the issues on the agenda item, which were then commented upon by Mr. Hutton as president of the HBPA. First, Mr. Hutton raises a portion of the Arizona administrative rules regarding the regulated racing industry, and Turf Paradise has complied with those regulations. Turf Paradise is inspected regularly. Turf Paradise has never been threatened to be shut down because its premises were not orderly, were not clean, and were not safe. So the assertion that they are not clean, not orderly, and not safe is both insulting and simply false. To take and continue to present while I am speaking, while Mr. Sims is speaking, which is inappropriate, but to take opportunistic photos while Turf Paradise is not racing and on a skeleton maintenance crew is absurd.
Mr. Claus, let me cut you off because I agree with that. Jason, can you please shut down the prior speakers? Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Claus. We'll a couple more seconds.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. Finally, Mr. Hutton talks about the marketing of the property, and this does go to the race dates. First, there's nothing in the Arizona statutory scheme which requires a contract between the horsemen and Turf Paradise for Turf Paradise to run a meet. Second, horse-related activities are driven by passion, and sometimes that passion results in economically irrational decisions. I have horses, and I make economically irrational decisions about them all the time. And anyone who loves horses does not typically engage in a horse-related industry because it is a surefire moneymaker. But there will come a point in time when Paradise is forced to make economically based decisions. And the notion that Mr. Weiss made, and it is an interesting exploitation of the situation, that Arizona, since I have been attending these meetings, Chairman Coolidge, I have heard all of the commissioners make a statement that their goal, their primary goal in making the decisions that the commission make, is to achieve year-round racing in Arizona. And I will tell you this, if Turf Paradise is forced to make economic-based decisions that make Turf Paradise not able to run racing in Arizona, there will not be year-round racing in Arizona, which will be directly contrary to the uniformly stated goals of this commission. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has, but I think it's the opportunity. I believe you're on mute, Chairman Coolidge. You were on mute, Chairman Coolidge.
Are you able to hear me?
I am able to hear you, Vice Chairman Gray.
Okay. I do have questions, but I think I'm going to wait till we hear from everyone. So, Chuck, I don't know if you're able to. I see Chuck is still on mute. Is Jason able to unmute?
Unfortunately, no. Only the individual can unmute their own device.
That is correct.
You may need to log out and log back in, Commissioner Coolidge, and if you do, then we'll have to call a timeout with the meeting because we'll lose our quorum. And we have lost our quorum, and the time is 10:36. We'll see Mr. Coolidge get back in, and then we'll reconvene. Thank you. Mr. Coolidge, you present?
Fun stuff. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries. Understand, and the time is 10:36, and we have Commissioner Olson, Commissioner Garay, and Commissioner Coolidge present. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claus, for that. I was able to hear but not speak, which I'm sure some people here were very happy about. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything else that you can add that's new to that?
Chairman Coolidge, this is Vincent Francie. I'm speaking on David Johnson's phone. Two quick things. I will go over everything the Turf is doing when it comes to the Turf Paradise section to update everyone. One is the photos I see that are flashing. Those photos could have been taken last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. When we are at this point prior to the race meet, that's what things look like. And I'm on a timetable. I know how to take care of them. I'm 54 days out. The second thing I want to add, and this is probably more important, Mr. Hutton knows me well enough, and certainly the man I work for, Mr. Sims, knows me well enough. This door is open to sit down and discuss anything you want. So let's not give the impression that there's some sort of barrier one way or the other. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Coolidge, are you present? Your screen is black, and I believe Mr. Francie is finished speaking.
I believe we have lost Chuck.
No, he's still present. No? His icon's still in the meeting, but he may be having technical. Nope, we have lost him again, and the time is 10:38 a.m. So please hold comments. Mr. Coolidge, you present?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Excuse me. Time is 10:38. Go ahead.
Sorry about that, guys. Any questions from my fellow commissioners? Otherwise, I'm going to move to enter executive session.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Coolidge to go into executive session, seconded by Ms. Olson. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Thank you. Time is 10:39 a.m. and this open session is recessed for an executive session.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is the third open session of the 690th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place via Google Meets. This is Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. I'll call the roll for quorum. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay?
Present.
Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum and the time is 10:54 a.m. Chair Coolidge, the meeting's yours.
Thank you. Before we jump back into it, I believe we still have 3 people that we previously identified that weren't available that are now available. Mr. Hare, are you now wanting to speak and have something new to bring to the table?
Yes, Chairman. This is Daryl here, Western Regional Manager for the Jockeys Guild.
Go ahead, sir.
Commissioners, the Guild supports the Arizona HBPA for its efforts and requests to address track safety concerns at Turf Paradise. In order to have a successful race meet, we must have a safe and clean environment. And thank you. If you have any questions for me, I'm available.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Eckleberry?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay. I'd like to say my name is Kevin Eckleberry. I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to speak to you. I was a former president of the HPBA when I first came here, when Jerry Sims first took over this racetrack. And right now my job is I am a board member. I do chairman of the backside and the track committee, and I walk that racetrack daily. And this racetrack last year was the worst condition I've ever seen this racetrack. We lost the number of horses late in the meet. For a short period of time, we lost a lot of horses. That can't happen again. What I heard when Peterson was on there was probably the best news I've heard. Also, aired Mr. Stiles, when we lost him, was a hard thing because we didn't know exactly who to turn to on this track condition. But we got it worked out. The biggest problem with our track condition the last year or two, all we've done is add sand to the running lanes. That's not acceptable. But to hear Vince talk about taking it all the way down, keeping the racetrack level all the way across, that's great. So far, most jocks, the wider they got on this racetrack, the better shot you had to win. That's not horse racing, people. That's not what we need. We need fair racing. It has not been that way. I lost 3 horses out of my barn last year. I trained horses for 47 years. Prior to that, I only lost 3 horses in those 47 years. We cannot have the kind of conditions we had in the past. I'm glad to hear they're going to have improvements, and I hope Mr. Peterson is part of this. This is what we need for our service, and we need fair and safe racing. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Mr. Fleming?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Director and members of the commission. Yeah, my name is Marvin Fleming, and my family owns Fleming Thoroughbred Farm. And our family has been breeding and racing horses in Arizona since 1947, 9 years before Turf Paradise opened and began racing. I'd briefly like to give a little insight on the breeding industry, and then I'll go to today's agenda item. I'll be brief and quick. But I'd like to briefly speak in regards to the current breeding industry in Arizona. Statistically, based on the 10-year time frame from the breeding season of 2011, the year Yavapai Downs closed and we no longer had year-round racing, to the breeding season of 2020, during that time, the thoroughbred breeding industry in Arizona realized a 65% decline in the number of mares bred. These numbers are directly from the Jockey Club, the registration regulatory body for thoroughbreds. There are currently only 2 major thoroughbred breeding farms, standing stallions, left in Arizona: AAA Ranch in Glendale and our Fleming Thoroughbred Farm in Wilcox. In talking with breeders, the number one reason they are not willing to breed is because of the situation with the racetracks. Basically not having year-round racing, and most recently not knowing if they would have a track to race at if they did breed. Being that horse racing is regulated by the Department of Game and Racing Division, the Director of Racing, and the members of the Racing Commission, I would just like to ask that they understand that the decisions made regarding racing also have a direct impact on the breeding industry in Arizona. In regards to the agenda item today, and after reading the request from the HBPA board dated July 30th and the open letter response from Jerry Sims, I would quote from the HBPA letter that track safety is our number one concern, and from Jerry Sims' open letter, I would quote, nonetheless, our highest priority remains the safety and health of the horses, the jockeys, and all others using our track. In conclusion, in saying that, it appears that both sides agree safety, health, and security of the jockeys, horses, horsemen, and horsewomen are their number one concern or highest priority. Of the 25 requests from the HBPA, I believe 20 of the 25 requests are directly related to these safety concerns and priorities. In closing, it is my opinion that tracks should not be awarded race dates without an agreeable contract in place with the group representing the horsemen and horsewomen. In Arizona, that group is the HBPA. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments from my fellow commissioners?
I'd just like to say, I feel like both sides, or at least some of the parts of the people here, are trying to negotiate their contract through the commission, and that's not our job. We're not going to negotiate this for you. I will agree, I've been on the backside. Yes, it is dirty back there, but I also know when the people leave the facility, they leave a lot of garbage back there. Things do need to be cleaned up, but I don't think we are in a position to negotiate this for you right now. I think both sides need to come together, come to the table, and just start the talks and work through items by items and do what is in the best interest of everyone, not just yourself, but for everyone, so we can have year-round racing. And I'd just like to remind people, and Mr. Sims, I'm not calling you the devil, but sometimes it is better to deal with the devil you know than the devil you don't. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
I agree, Mr. Vice Chair. I think, one thing that the commission sees often is a lot of rock throwing by all parties. It's something that, well, I'll just speak for myself. I dread every single meeting here, the back and forth, and it's like a big high school that I have to listen to every month, and it's disappointing. That said, the people that are being impacted the most are the guys on the backside, and we want to make sure that first and foremost, it's a safe environment. Whether aesthetically pleasing is one thing, but safe is another. We want to make sure that the horses, the employees, even the patrons are being accommodated in the right way, and it's safe. So that's the one thing I will say about it. With that said, it's this was for discussion. We're going to move over to simulcast unless I have anybody else that wants to say anything. Okay, we'll move to action item D3, simulcast agreements pursuant to ARS 5-112U, Arizona Downs, which would be Mile High USA, Global Gaming RP, and the Downs at Albuquerque. Who do we have to speak? Does the department want to speak on that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, all the contracts are in and fully executed. I recommend that those contracts be approved.
Just going to look through them again, just to make sure on this. Everything looks to be in order. Any of my fellow commissioners have any questions on anything here?
No, I'm good. It doesn't. Looking at them as well, everything seems to be in order.
Otherwise, go ahead.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve Arizona Downs, Mile High USA, Global Gaming RP, and the Downs at Albuquerque, Inc.
Second.
Thank you. Having a motion and a second on approving Mile High, Global Gaming, and the Downs at Albuquerque. Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move to 3B, Turf Paradise, Mile High USA, Inc., Global Gaming RP, and the Downs at Albuquerque. Mr. Estrada, while we look through this on our end, why don't you give us an update on yours?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just like Arizona Downs, Turf Paradise have also submitted contracts fully executed, and I would recommend that those contracts be approved.
Everything looks in order on my end.
Same here.
I'm going to go ahead that we move to approve Turf Paradise's Mile High USA, Global Gaming RP, and the Downs at Albuquerque, Inc.
Second.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry, please.
This is Mike Napier. Yes, I am. This is Mike Napier, and I'm signed up to speak on this issue.
He is, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Floor is yours.
Thank you. You're about to approve some simulcasting signals, apparently import signals. First of all, the signals that the approvals that exist now from the Arizona HBPA expire on September 23rd this year. After that time, unless there's a contract, frankly, we don't anticipate there's going to be any additional approvals. Right now, we are opposing, that is, the Arizona HBPA opposes the Commission's approval of the import of the signals that are on your agenda for Turf Paradise. And let me explain why. The Arizona Revised Statutes speak in terms of, give a definition of simulcasting, and that's ARS 5-101. It talks about sending and receiving, export and import. The point is this, and I'm looking at the agenda, it talks about the Interstate Horse Racing Act. Actually, the Interstate Horse Racing Act applies to the export of signals and certain requirements. It's your own rules, it's your own administrative process that requires, that imposes requirements for the import of signals to Turf Paradise. So any kind of approval should make reference to your own administrative rules. And in particular, the rule is just for specificity, R19-2-419. And B of that section talks about sending and receiving. That's export and import. So it's R19-419B. So when we talk about receiving a signal, we're talking about importing the signal. And that's what you're about to approve here. But you're about to approve it without the prerequisites. And let me point out what they are, because they're set out right within your own administrative rules. One, of course, is the agreement. The other is the host track consent. That's the exporting track. The other is the Host Horsemen's Association approval. And that, of course, is the Exporting Horsemen's Association. The fourth is the Host Commission approval. The fifth is, and here's my point, the written approval of the local horsemen's group. That's the Arizona HBPA. You don't have that in front of you. And without it, your own rules will not let you approve these simulcasting imported signals. Of course, the last requirement is the approval of the commission itself. So the point here is we have not given our approval for any of these signals to be extended beyond import or export, to be extended beyond the dates of the current signals. And our authority for our position are your own rules. And we ask you to adhere to your rules and require, before you approve, the approval of the local horsemen's group. And right now, I'm speaking only about import, although your own rules cover export and import. And the Interstate Horse Racing Act covers the export. So it's not complicated. It's very clear. And if you make reference to the administrative rule that I'm citing, it lays it out in sections A through D, section R19-2-419.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
We're asking you not to approve the imported signals. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Understood.
This is Kelly Wagner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Just to reiterate, the Commission is dealing with contract simulcast agreements pursuant to ARS 5-112U. So this isn't the signal import. That's the next section of the agenda. So I just wanted to remind the Commission where we were at the agenda. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for chiming in.
Yeah, thank you, because it looks like I spoke prematurely. I should be on number 4.
No problem. Appreciate it. Okay. Mr. Claus,
thank you.
Sir, can you go ahead and mute your phone for me? Thank you. Mr. Claus, I'll give you 3 minutes, and Mr. Johnson, if you need additional after that, we can review.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. I believe Ms. Wagner addressed the primary issue that I was going to address, but I would also ask that the Commission adhere to its own protocol. There had been a motion and a second on the floor prior to what was an extended discussion by Mr. Napier about an item that wasn't on the agenda at all. So, and I would like to address and Mr. Napier still insists on interrupting, apparently. I would like to address Mr. Napier's comments when it comes to agenda item 4 and 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, I'm assuming you don't have anything else to add?
No, I do not, Chair. Thank you very much. Ms. Wagner answered, she addressed what I was going to say.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary, I believe we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. I do have the motion. It's made by Chair Coolidge. I'm sorry, who seconded that motion? Thank you, Mr. Garay. So is the motion and second made? Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I would respectfully request a quick break for relieving from coffee.
1 hour. Okay. Let's go ahead. Can you do it in 5 since we have a ton of stuff to get through?
Well, I'm not the only one that has to go. I know there are some in the office that have to get at a good distance from the department offices to the restroom.
I'll give it to you. So we'll go ahead and reconvene at 11:20.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Time is 11:11 and we are recessed. Reconvene?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We will reconvene the open session of the Arizona Racing Commission meeting held via Google Meets. This is Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. I will go ahead and do roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay?
Present.
Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum and the time is 11:20 a.m.
Thank you, ma'am. Just looking through the speaker list here. So we're moving over to item 4A, which is the simulcast horse racing signals pursuant to IHA section 3004A3. I don't think anybody signed up to speak for Arizona Downs. They're not broken up. So do we have anybody signed up for the Arizona Downs line items?
This is Dave Author. Could we hear from the division? I don't need to say anything if all the paperwork is in order.
Yes, sir. Looks like it is on my end, but Mr. Estrada, would you chime in, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. For items 1, 2, and 3, Arapahoe Park, Downs at Albuquerque, and Remington Park, with this current previous approval with the 5U, the only item I'm missing information on is the Downs at Albuquerque. But with that said, and the contracts already approved, I would recommend that those IHAs be approved. For the last item, that it be approved pending me receiving those documents that are pending.
Mr. Estrada, say that one more time for me. It sounded like you said you didn't have a contract for Arapahoe Park.
No, all the contracts just got previously approved in the last item.
Yes, sir.
So the only thing I'm missing for Arizona Downs would be on item for the Downs at Albuquerque, item 2 on the agenda, and I'm missing several documents. But with the contract approved, I would recommend that they be approved pending me receiving the missing documents.
Understood. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm going to move that we approve Arizona Downs, Arapahoe Park, and Remington Park.
Second.
I will. Madam Secretary, I think Commissioner Olson stole the second.
Thank you. That was going to be my question. So this motion on the floor is to approve Arapahoe Park and Remington Park. And
yes, ma'am.
It's been made by Chair Coolidge and seconded by Commissioner Olson. Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
I would move that we conditionally approve the Downs at Albuquerque, provided the department receives all of the proper paperwork, and I will leave it up to the department to establish that they have received those documents.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Coolidge and seconded by Commissioner Garay to conditionally approve the Downs at Albuquerque. And the department will make the decision based on what is submitted. So with that in mind, the roll call, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
We do have speakers signed up for 4B. Mr. Napier, it looks like that was the one you were signed up for. So I don't think we need to have you come and speak again on that. Mr. Claus, I'll assign you 3 minutes for this.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. Well, the first point I want to address is this, and it's rather unorthodox, but I do want to make sure Vice Chair Garay and Commissioner Olson and Chairman Coolidge, you have the agenda in front of you, because I want to specifically address the language in your agenda item for item 4, which is simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to IHA, the Interstate Horse Racing Act, Section 3004A3. There is no other item agendized for this topic. And it is exactly the same item that is agendized. Simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3 for the next item, which is why for item 4, this agenda item, you are not having discussion about commingled racing pools or the terms of an agreement, because as Mr. Estrada reminded us all, the contract has already been approved for this. The contract has already been approved for the next item. Pursuant to the only law that is noted in the agenda item, and Ms. Wagner and your new counsel can discuss with you the requirements of Arizona's open meeting law, but the only legal requirement that is agendized for consideration with respect to the simulcast horse race import signals under 4B is the IHA in Section 3004A3. Mr. Napier purports to object on behalf of the Arizona horsemen, but under Section 3004 of the Interstate Horse Racing Act, the Arizona horsemen do not get to say one word in affirmance or in protest. The only horsemen that are mentioned anywhere in Section 3004 of the Interstate Horse Racing Act, again, the only item up for discussion and vote, are the horsemen for the host racetrack. That's the track where the races run outside of Arizona for the signals to be imported into Arizona. Mr. Napier's argument that the IHA does not apply to imported signals is just absurd and ignores the mandate of Congress. For wagers to be legal in Arizona, the Arizona legislature has said that the importation of signals has to comply with the IHA, and Congress has said that the importation of signals has to comply with the IHA. It's ludicrous and is not borne out by a single case or the language of the statute to suggest that only exportation of signals is governed by the IHA. Under the IHA, the only agendized item, the Arizona horsemen do not get to exercise any type of veto. I want to make sure that's clear, and I want to make sure that you have the agenda in front of you and answer any questions that you have about that. But I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claus.
May I address that, Mr. Chair?
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Well, that's not enough time.
Okay, then we'll move on to the next person.
Well, I feel like I'm being denied the opportunity to speak to a very important issue.
I just
the fact is IHA doesn't talk about import signals, it talks about export signals. So how about a minute? Could you give me a minute?
Sure, I'll give you 60 seconds.
All right, thanks. The IHA speaks to export signals. It's the host racetrack that exports. We're talking about import signals here. The IHA does give you the authority to regulate and issue rules and regulations with regard to the simulcasting of signals, both export and import. You've done that. That's the only part the IHA plays in this process. You have a very clear, articulated recipe for how to improve, how to obtain and approve by the Commission a signal that is imported, and it is pursuant to your own rules. The IHA does figure into that by giving you the authority to promulgate those rules. You've done it, and I'm asking you to adhere to your rules. You do not have the approval of the Arizona HBPA. That precludes you under your own rules from approving it. Description such as ridiculous and ludicrous doesn't make somebody right. It's very clear, it's very plain, and it's your own process. Thank you.
Understood. Before 60 seconds, I appreciate it. Mr. Johnson, do you have a comment? Did you have your hand raised? Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
It was Dave Author, sir. I'm sorry.
Mr. Author, do you have something pertinent to add to the Turf Paradises line item here?
Yes, I do, and it probably will come up again when another topic comes up. But I think the way that the Commission should analyze this is this: that the Commission, under the IHA, is one of the groups that has to consent to the signal, and under Arizona law, the legislature has told the Commission the conditions on which they are allowed to consent. And one of the conditions that the Arizona law says under that regulation that permits the Commission to consent is if the horsemen have, the local horsemen, the Arizona horsemen have consented, and also if the contract and the offer complies with 5112U, that is to say, if it's decent and if it's not anti-competitive. So you're being asked to consent. And the question you have to ask is, is the Commission allowed to consent without the local horsemen's approval? And the answer to that is no. Your consent is conditioned under Arizona law by the horsemen's consent to this signal. And failing obtaining the horsemen's consent, the Commission's consent is not allowed under Arizona law. I think that's what Mr. Napier is saying in a little bit different way. I think Mr. Claus is 100% incorrect in his interpretation of the law. This is not just a federal question. The legislature has instructed the Commission on when it can and cannot consent. Thank you.
I do have a question regarding that item. You bring up 5112U, anti-competitive. And with some of the things we've heard today in the previous meetings, I'm starting to get the impression that there's an issue. People dislike a Turf Paradise, trying to drive them out of business. So could this be considered anti-competitive, that you're given consent to Arizona Downs but not giving it to Turf Paradise? And it's not really a question. I'm just throwing that out as my thinking.
Well, no, that's not necessarily so. And I don't know if that's the case. Bob Hutman would have to speak to that. But both tracks require to import a signal require the consent of the HBPA. Or the approval of the HBPA.
Mr. Claus, I'll give you a minute.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. I appreciate you recognizing me, and I hope you note that I did not speak before you recognized me. One point, Vice Chairman Garay, and again, this is why the agenda is so important. I know that there was a lot of discussion about anti-competitiveness and about commingled betting pools. I know that discussion has been rampant. And honestly, I'm addressing you, Vice Chairman Correa, because you raised that when you tabled agenda item 5 at the last meeting. But I do want you to look at the agenda and note the difference between agenda item 4, which is the agenda item that is up for discussion now, which just has one topic, the simulcast horse racing pursuant to the IHA section 3004A, And then agenda item 3, the last thing that the commission approved, which were the simulcast agreements pursuant to ARS 5-112U. To address your question, Vice Chairman Garay, this commission already decided when it approved the Turf Paradise Monarch simulcast agreement pursuant to ARS 5-112U in November 2020 that the agreement complied with that statute. And so and this is the most important point, and you will see Arizona Downs will try and conflate it. Mr. Napier would try and conflate it.
10 seconds, sir.
Thank you. That ARS 5-112U is the state law. The IHA, which is the only law under the agendized item in 4 and 5, is the federal law and contains none of the requirements in the state law. I hope that clarifies it, and if it doesn't, please ask me, and I will try better.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I move that we enter executive session.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and seconded by Ms. Olson to go into executive session. Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. The time is 11:35 and we're in recess for an executive session. Thank you. The time is 11:50 a.m. and we will reconvene into the 4th open session of the 690th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place via Google Meets. I'm Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. The floor is yours, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Just as a follow-up, we are on item 4, simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to the IHA Section 3004A3, Turf Paradises, Arapahoe Park, Downs at Albuquerque, and Remington Park. Do any of my commissioners have anything they want to bring up before we move forward?
Did have one question, and I kind of go back to last year's racing season with Turf Paradise. I believe there was a contract in place, and I'm curious if I kind of remember, I thought there was some language in that contract that consent could not be withdrawn, and I do believe we do have consent till I think September 20th or something. 23rd.
Yes, sir.
So I would like a little clarification on the contract and if that was true.
Commissioner, are you asking that of the department or
well, maybe Mr. Claus could fill us in on, or Mr. Francia, anyone who's familiar with the contract.
Chairman Coolidge, members of the commission. Yes, I believe what Commissioner Garay stated is in fact true. If that helps for clarification, that is in effect until the end of September.
September 23rd, just to clarify, is that correct?
That's the date, the specific date. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Understood. Mr. Vice Chair, does that answer your question appropriately?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Identify yourself.
Yeah, Bob Hutton, Arizona HPPA.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, the agreement expired on the end of June, I believe, on the 30th. So that's the end of the agreement. As far as Mr. Garay's question about if there's a contract.
I'm not sure if that's Mr. Hutt. I guess I would lean to the department then to see if we can get a contract for review, because to my knowledge it was September 23rd.
No, the agreement for the last race season expired, I believe it was the last day of June.
Mr. Claus, I'll give you a minute. Before you speak, could I ask the department to pull that contract up for us, please, if we have it available? might be a business-to-business contract.
Chairman Coolidge, thank you. And I won't take a minute. But if you can harken back to Mr. Napier's lengthy comments, Mr. Napier, on behalf of the Horsemen, said that the approval was through the end of September. So Mr. Napier confirmed exactly what Mr. Garay's question was and took a contrary position, which is an odd thing for a lawyer to do, to what Mr. Hutton is telling you right now. And more importantly, there is no provision under either state law or the IHA. Again, the IHA doesn't apply to the Arizona Horsemen, but even for the Horsemen to which the IHA does apply, which is the host track, it's very particular about when the Horsemen can attempt to withdraw an approval, and it is not any time that they want. It is very specific. So I'll answer any other questions you have, but I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, this is Mike Napier. I've been misstated. May I address that briefly?
Yes, sir. The floor is yours. Let's just do one.
Thank you. Yes. What I said was that the approvals will expire on September 23rd, 2021. I did not say that there was a contract. I did not say that there's anything about signals in a contract. And what's being confused is a contract with the approval letters, which also are contracts for each track, for each signal. So what I said is absolutely correct. There's nothing to change about it whatsoever. The approvals we've signed, and by the way, we can rescind them whenever, and that's another issue. But the approvals we signed go to September 23rd, 2021. The contract had nothing about signals as far as I know. Previously, a contract referenced signals, but it said the track will obtain approvals or consents. So, no, a contract did not preclude us from rescinding a contract. There's not a contract that holds us to approving in the future. The current approvals will expire.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Any of my commissioners have anything on their end?
No, I'm good, and I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. We do have approval for this particular item through September, again, 23rd, I believe it is?
Prior approval, yes.
Yes, prior approval. Okay. Well, if there's nothing further, I would move to approve item 4,
Sir,
the Turf
I apologize.
Paradises, Arapahoe Park, the Downs at Albuquerque, and Remington Park through September 23rd.
I'd just modify your motion to include conditional approval if consent past September 23rd is obtained for the department to continue to approve those.
I approve that addition.
Sir, I'm sorry. I know we have a motion and a second on the table. However, Juan Carlos Estrada has raised his hand. He's with the division. He may have some clarification that may impact this decision. Would you like
Commissioners,
to
are you okay to table your motion for now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Estrada, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that I am still missing paperwork for Remington Park and Global Gaming, which is doing business as the Downs of Albuquerque. But as I stated before, for Arizona Downs, it's the same with this. I will make sure that those documents are in before we approve the signal, if the signals get approved.
Ms. Wagner, actually, Commissioners, are you okay if you table your motion so I can ask a question to council?
The motion is, I request to table my motion.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Wagner, considering our next meeting is on September 9th, can we table this request and still be able to review that? And I'll ask the department, if we tabled this until the next scheduled meeting, will the department have enough time to make sure that they see the right documents and we are not disrupting business as usual?
And Commissioner Coolidge, if I might jump in here ahead of the department, if the commission feels that they don't have specific information available to them to be able to come to a decision, you certainly could do that, but at least at this point you do have a motion out there that would need to be dealt with one way or another.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Estrada, did you raise your hand again, or am I just having...
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify that the 5U contract has been previously approved. We're missing just small documents as far as like commission host and host horseman approvals. So with that, I would recommend that it gets approved pending receiving those documents.
Understood. Mr. Commissioner, I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Duray.
Oh, great. Now I have to try to remember.
Gotcha.
Ms. Olson, you may have to jump in with the addition.
And I think I have another revision to your motion, if I might offer that.
Sure.
So I would propose revising Commissioner Goray's motion to conditionally approve Turf Paradise's signals for Arapahoe Park, the Downs at Albuquerque, and Remington Park, conditioned on approval past September 23rd, to also include conditional approval once the department receives the requisite documents.
For the Downs at Albuquerque and Remington Park.
That's right. So maybe we need to split up the two motions. I'm not sure.
I think we covered everything in there. So I would be in agreement with the addition to my motion.
Okay.
May I ask what approval you referenced?
Sir, we have a motion on the floor.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the motion.
Mr. Coolidge, would you like me to reiterate the motion as best as I can?
Best of luck, please.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Olson is to conditionally approve the Turf Paradise signals for Arapahoe Park, the Downs at Albuquerque, and Remington Park, conditional upon approval past September 23rd, and conditional approval over receiving documents for the Downs at Albuquerque and Remington Park that are necessary to comply with the IHA portion.
And I believe the clarification required is the conditional approval past September 23rd is related to the horsemen's group's approval.
Okay, does that make sense, gentlemen and ladies? Do you want to break it up into two separate motions and withdraw it and start over?
So I'll withdraw my motion, or I don't know if it's my motion or Commissioner Goray's motion at this point.
I will withdraw my motion and the additions to my motion.
Ms. Olson, are you going to also withdraw and we'll start with a clean slate?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have no motions on the table, and the floor is the commission's to make a decision.
All right, at this point in time, I make a motion to approve, pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3, Turf Paradises or Arapahoe Park through September 23rd, with the condition that it could be extended by the department should there be an agreement with the horsemen.
So do we have a second?
I think we lost Commissioner Olson. Oh, no, there she is.
No, I second that.
Thank you. She was there. She was just silent.
Just reading.
I hear you. Okay, so Ms. Olson seconds that motion to approve the Turf Paradise Arapahoe Park through September 23rd, 2021, with conditioned that it can be extended if an agreement is reached with the horsemen. So call on the vote. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. That signal is approved. Someone want to give a shot at the second motion for the other two signals remaining?
You're doing so great, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm going to let you keep going.
At this point in time, to make a motion pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3, Turf Paradise with the Downs at Albuquerque and Remington Park. Oh man, I just lost my train of thought. I just completely went blank. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Wilson, do you want to?
Sure.
You want to make the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3 for Turf Paradise for the Downs at Albuquerque and Remington Park through September 23rd, with option to extend past that date if an agreement is reached between the Horsemen's Group and Turf Paradise, and conditioned upon the department's receipt of the host commissions and host horsemen's requisite documents, and the department can make those approvals once they've received the necessary paperwork to ensure that there's no delay in business.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Gray, did you second that?
No, I think the chair did.
Mr. Coolidge, I'm sorry, did you second that?
No.
Okay, then I will second it.
Okay. Mr. Gray seconds the approval of Turf Paradise, Remington Park, and Albuquerque Downs signals through September 23rd, 2021, with the option to extend that approval past the 23rd of September if a contract agreement is reached between Turf Paradise and the Horsemen, and then conditional on approval of receiving the documents necessary for the Horsemen and the commissions, the state commissions, giving their approval for the signal to come here. Am I correct? Thank you. With that in mind, roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay, we're going to move to item 5, simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3. Looks like we have a handful of people scheduled to talk on this one as well. Mr. Author, you want to kick us off?
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. This topic probably looks familiar because it's been on the agenda several times already. And in particular, I want to point out that the reason it's on today's agenda is because Vice Chairman Garay asked to table the exact same issue last meeting. And the reason he asked to table it was because he wanted to see whether or not this issue was before the Office of Administrative Appeals, and he wanted to see whether the Horsemen approved any of these Monarch signals, which would only go to Turf Paradise and would not go at all to Arizona Downs. And having waited a month, we now know that the two things that he wanted to know, we have answers to. Number one, the Horsemen have not and will not approve the Monarch signal under the current situation where Turf Paradise gets commingled pools and Arizona Downs does not. So the condition under which consent is necessary for the commission having a horseman's approval has not been met. Secondly, Vice Chairman Garay asked to know the status of the appeal. And the appeal of this issue is something that is defined at item C1 of every single agenda that's been in place, I think, for the last 6 months. and that is the following is for executive session only, and you skip a few lines and it says, an appeal in the Office of Administrative Hearings by Turf Paradise contesting the Commission's December 2020 decision to deny IHA consent for wagering of signals imported from contracts associated with Monarch Content Management. And so then we look at the agenda item that's on for today, and it's exactly the same thing. So, and now we found out yesterday that the Office of Administrative Appeals has set the hearing for October 25 and 26 after having denied Turf Paradise request to take the depositions of several of the commissioners. So the precise issue that is before you today is also before the Office of Administrative Appeals. And we ask that in response to the basis for the tabling, we now know the answer, and we request that you deny Turf Paradise's attempt for maybe 6, 7, or 8 times in a row to have the Monarch signal given to them and a bastardized Monarch signal given to Arizona Downs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Napier, you're signed up for this as well?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 minutes. I don't need that much time. I have spoken to this. It's the same argument. Mr. Arthur is correct that Arizona HBPA has not given approval for the import of these signals. That being said, then the applicable rule applies. It's a prerequisite to the Commission's approval. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Claus, trying to read through. Let's give you 3 minutes, and looks like we have Mr. Francia, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Sims who can allocate time to you if needed.
I believe that they have each allocated me a minute of their time. Chairman Coolidge, thank you. So if I could just ask for 5 minutes, that will leave some time left over for questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. It's interesting that Mr. Arthur believes that he knows the motivations of Vice Chairman Coolidge when tabling. One of the things that Vice Chairman Gray actually said when moving to table is a concern of mine, Vice Chairman Gray. You did mention a concern about commingled betting pools. And again, I want to focus on the language of the agenda item that we are talking about. And it is just the importation of simulcast signals pursuant to Section 3004A3 of the IHA. That statute, that federal statute, is not the state statute that Mr. Arthur keeps arguing about, that Mr. Napier keeps arguing about, that Mr. Langhoffer before them kept arguing about. The federal statute, which is the only item for the agenda to vote on today, does not talk about commingled betting pools. Mr. Napier is simply wrong. He is misstating the very language of that statute. And I can pull it up for you if you want, but it's telling that he has not quoted from you or quoted from the statute to you. When that statute talks about a horseman's group, it only talks about the horseman's group that has a contract with the host racing association. That is the racetrack where the race is run by definition, not the Arizona Horsemen's Group. The administrative hearing that Mr. Arthur mentioned is an administrative hearing. It is not, quote, exactly the same thing, end quote. The dates for the meets in the administrative hearing are completely different than the dates that are on the agenda item, the only agenda item that is for your consideration. And the tracks that are the subject of the administrative hearing are different from the tracks that are the subject of your agenda item. But most importantly, as Mr. Arthur knows, but apparently won't tell you candidly, but as I'm sure Ms. Brenner and Ms. Wagner can remind you, when the administrative law judge makes a decision, that decision can either be accepted, denied, or modified by the director. And so there is nothing about the administrative hearing or the outcome of the administrative hearing that should impact the decision or the consideration of the only agenda item that is in front of you. The horsemen do not have the right for a veto. Congress did not give them that right under the IHA. There is no textual support for Mr. Napier or Mr. Author's argument that the horsemen somehow have a right to interfere with the ability of Turf Paradise to accept the importation of signals for a contract that this commission has already approved twice. I want to say that again. This commission approved the simulcast wagering agreement between Monarch and Turf Paradise. Arizona Downs objected to it. The commission approved it. Arizona Downs then objected so strenuously that they asked the commission to reconsider. And the commission refused to reconsider its approval of the simulcast wagering agreement. There is nothing in the federal law, which is the only law that is agendized, that talks about any of the issues that Mr. Author or Mr. Napier has raised. And if the commission has specific questions about what the language of the federal legislation, the only legislation that is up for discussion according to the agenda item, I would welcome the opportunity to answer those questions. And the last point, I too would just ask the commission to follow the law and follow both the law of the agendized item, but also follow the open meeting law that governs this public body and any public body in Arizona, which stands for the proposition that a public body has to only consider items that are on an agenda and only has to discuss items that are on an agenda, but most importantly, can only vote on the items that are actually on the agenda. And all of the arguments that Mr. Author and Mr. Napier are making are items that are outside what has been agendized. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I appreciate Chairman Coolidge giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. It looks like we have both authors with their hands raised. Tom, do you want to go first? Let's just do, can you do a minute?
Yeah, Chairman Coolidge, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, the Arizona State Legislature wanted the horsemen to be able to weigh in on this issue. They specifically created a law that says the commission cannot approve these signals without the HBPA signature. And that's why that signature block has been on all of these agreements for all these many years. And that is contained in R19-2-419. So this stuff about it's a state law, not a federal law. The required commission approval cannot be granted without the EPA's approval. Secondly, we aren't the ones that put this issue into court. Turf did, and they've also, I believe, extended once. So if they want to get this adjudicated in the courts, let's do it. Don't try and short circuit that by also trying to work the commission time and time again. And that's the reasons for postponing this from last month are still there today. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. 60 seconds, Dave.
You just heard from Monarch's lawyer, or is it Turf's lawyer? I'm not sure. But the fact is, what you're being asked to do is to approve the Monarch contracts to go to the Monarch signals to go to Turf Paradise with and at the same time, the signals that would go to Arizona Downs would be non-commingled. Because the next thing that you're going to hear, if you approve these, is, well, let's send us the signal. This isn't some esoteric, let me hit a loophole or two as I talk about federal versus state. This is the fact that they want the signal, the Monarch signal, which has been rejected by you folks because the contracts were unfair and they were anti-competitive. They want that to go to the Turf Paradise tracks, which will have the effect of putting us out of business. And at the side of his mouth, Monarch's counsel is saying, well, we want year-round racing. We know we want year-round racing. Every single month for 2 years, they've come to you and tried to come up with a way to put us out of business. And this is just the latest. They don't want year-round racing. They want a monopoly. It's obvious. And cut through all the BS that you hear at every single meeting. And that's what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Coolidge, this is Kelly Wagner again. I just would ask the Commission caution everyone, as far as speaking, that we're speaking on the topic that's before the Commission, which is the simulcast pursuant to IHA Section 3004. So the Commission is not dealing with 5112U. I know there's been some arguments that are kind of putting the two together, but specifically what is before the Commission is the IHA. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Appreciate the clarification. Mr. Claus, 60 seconds.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Coolidge, and thank you.
Before you start, sir, sorry to cut you off. I don't want to go back and forth with legal arguments, not directed at anybody in particular, but we have a lot to do today, so 60 seconds, sir.
No, I appreciate that, Chairman Coolidge, and Ms. Wagner, I really appreciate that clarification, because that is exactly what I have tried to highlight in my comments. But I do want to address the Freudian slip that was just made. We are not asking the Commission to, quote, approve the Monarch contracts, end quote, because the Commission already did that. The Commission did it in November, then it reaffirmed it in December. So the Commission has already approved the Monarch contracts. Again, Mr. Author is trying to talk to you about state law and commingled betting pools, and the Commission has already rejected those arguments. So it is interesting that I have been accused of being a lawyer for someone that I do not represent, for an entity that I don't represent today, but also that somehow you're supposed to, quote, cut through the BS, end quote. But it is Mr. Author who is talking about a law that does not apply, talking about reversing a decision that the Commission has already made twice, and accusing Turf of putting before the Commission signals that are not part of the appeal from tracks that are not part of the appeal, but were included in the approved contract. Every other time, Mr. Estrada simply makes a presentation saying, the contract's approved, we know that's true, and we have this information from the host track and the host association. There's no reason for this to be any different. And the only reason it is being treated differently is not because of something that Turf Paradise is trying to do, but it's because of the filibustering, even now, while I'm trying to speak, that is going on between Arizona Downs. So I would ask the Commission to simply focus on the one agenda item and approve the signals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, may I have 30 seconds?
I'm sorry, identify yourself.
Mike Napier, asking for 30 seconds.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. First of all, the agenda doesn't, limit the discussion. The discussion is about importing signals. The Interstate Horse Racing Act addresses exporting signals. The importation of signals is governed by Arizona law, and a prerequisite is our approval. You don't have our approval. And without that, you're bound by administrative rule and the statutes, and are actually, by your own rules, cannot approve these signals, these imported signals. So Ms. Claus is citing a federal statute that deals with exporting signals, not importing. And we're talking about importing signals today. The fact that it makes reference to the IHA doesn't mean you should ignore your own rules. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any of my fellow commissioners have any questions or comments before I give mine?
I'll let you give yours first.
So I'll jump in. We've seen this agendized item more times than I care to admit to. The comments that I've made before and that I will make again are, if anything, this agendized item should be a reminder to all tracks in the state that due to that bill that was passed, we have one option. If we want to work with Monarch, that option is everyone needs to be on the same page and everybody's got to be on one network. Now, I realize not everyone wants to do that. And I realize one network is difficult, but the commission, myself, other commissioners on the commission have made hours and hours available should we be able to get to the same page on this. Not only that, this one agendized item has been sitting with OA for months. So, in my opinion, I don't want to go and step out when it's in front of OA doing what it's doing. That's why I'm not going to move on it. I'm happy to hear what my fellow commissioners say, but I have a hard time doing it.
You know, along the lines there, Mr. Chairman, this has been a frustrating, I don't know how many years now. I've had 5 other commissioners sitting with me that have moved on since this all started. The state is losing money. The department, you know, the tracks are losing money. There's purse money that's not getting into the purses, all because of this. I think we got to get to a point of time where we can start being a little more respectful of each other. Stop with these little snide remarks at each other when you're speaking. Start being respectful, and let's come up with a plan to work together and get this done. We're only harming ourselves, which is the men and women on the backside, and our state people, our players who want to play. We got to come together and start being respectful. That's all I have to say on the item.
Do we have any motions? Okay, we'll move to item E1, appeal of the director's order. Actually, I'll hand this off to the department. Does the department have anything they want to add to this?
Chair Coolidge, I do have arguments. I don't know.
Can you identify yourself, please?
I'm sorry, this is Kelly Wagner, Assistant Attorney General for the Commission and for the department.
Thank you.
I believe there is, with your packet, and you should have independent Attorney General counsel for the item.
Ms. Wagner, I'm sorry, but you're breaking up and skipping.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it must have been with my AG network. I apologize. There should be within your packet how the proceedings should go. I believe that appellant will be giving a statement. I'll be providing response, and then she would have the opportunity to present rebuttal. There is an independent Attorney General as well for you to ask questions of, and I believe, Ms. Cody, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay. Or Ms. Carey is on the line. Ms. Cody, are you on the line from the AG's office as independent counsel for the commission?
I saw her on here earlier. She may have left. I can't determine if she's still here. If you would like to give me a moment, I will reach out to her and see if she can jump back in on this.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate because I cannot give advice to the commission if there is any question.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I gotta run. Just go ahead and come on in. Thank you. Miss Cody will be right in. She was having difficulties on speaking. She could hear and see us, but we couldn't hear her, so she'll be right with us. And just for clarification, she indicated she was logging in on her personal laptop. She was having technical difficulties with her desk one, and I think that's part of what Ms. Wagner was also experiencing. So sorry for the delay. Appreciate your patience. Okay, Ms. Cody, are you there now? If you're still having technical difficulties, you may want to use the call-in link and use your phone for your audio. Okay, I see you there, and you need to unmute your microphone. There you are.
I am so sorry, Chairman, members of the board. I just got a brand new web camera hooked up yesterday. We tested it again. I could hear you, I could see you, but it wasn't reciprocated. I am here now, and I am an Assistant Attorney General at the Attorney General's office, and I am here to provide the board advice on this matter. Because Kelly Wagner, as the advocate, cannot provide you advice. So that's my purpose. And if we would need to go into executive session, I would be your attorney for that, for this matter on the agenda. And again, I apologize for the delay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. This is the time set for consideration of the director's order in case number 21A-007-DOR. Richard Troy Smith's appeal of the Arizona Racing Commission of the director's order to uphold the Turf Paradise Board of Stewards ruling to deny Mr. Smith a lease. Are the parties present? And if so, please identify yourselves.
Kathleen Carey for the petitioner. Yes, Chair Coolidge. Kelly Wagner, Assistant Attorney General for the director.
Anyone else?
Ms. Carey, would you like to identify yourself for the record, please?
I already have. This is Kathleen Carey for Troy Smith.
Thank you.
So the petitioner has filed an appeal on the decision from the director. The gist of our clients...
Ms. Carey, just before you get started, I'm going to have each party have 7 minutes. So since the appellant has the burden of proof in this matter, he can go first. And the commission will then hear from the state, and the appellant will have given time for a brief rebuttal. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee members, I'm here on Mr. Smith's behalf because this matter has proceeded along the way repeatedly without any due process. The stewards meeting took place without his having any notice. The decision was made. A hearing was held before the director. At that hearing, we were literally not given any information prior to it. It was probably one of the most offensive, I'm not sure if the word is sandbagging, that
ever took, people appeared at that hearing that we were not given any notice of. In the middle of the hearing, we were told we could have gotten it through Freedom of Information Act requests, which usually take months. My client is specifically asking for this board to give him his due process. This is a matter that's taking away his right, not just for his trade here in Arizona, but in his home state because of the decisions that were made and the due process that was not afforded to him. I'll reserve the rest of my time for my closing.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Wagner?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. As you have, I believe, been provided a copy of, the Director, in an order dated May 19th, 2021, found that Appellant Troy Smith's conduct, as described in the above findings of fact, was a violation of R19-211211, which stated a licensee, while on the premises of a permittee, shall not create a disturbance, be intoxicated, interfere with a racing operation, or act in an abusive or threatening manner to a racing official or other person, pursuant to R19-2106C, and the grounds for disciplinary action through R19-2121E and ARS 5104B, 5108A, 1, G, and H. Those findings of facts were submitted after a process that was set out by the rules for the racing division, and specifically the Turf Paradise Board of Stewards issued a stewards ruling enumerated 20-21 TP022, in which it found that appellant was denied a license for an applicant licensee setting 5108 and ARS 5108 and AAC R19-123C for multiple incidences of erratic and disruptive behavior, physical assault, and for conduct detrimental to the best interest of the racing and safety, welfare, economy, health, and peace of the people of the state. Appellant actually requested an appeal. A notice of hearing was sent to appellant that detailed all the statutory and regulatory requirements set forth within it. The director's hearing was held on April 20th, 2021, where appellant was present and was also represented by counsel, provided evidence through testimony of witnesses both from the state as well as for appellant, and appellant had the ability to cross-examine witnesses and evidence presented in support of the denial of license and the request for that license to be implemented. Now, what the Commission is looking to do and what it is required to do through administrative rules that the Commission has approved is the Commission shall review the record and affirm, reverse, or modify the Director's ruling or conduct other proceedings the Commission deems appropriate. And that is pursuant to R19-124A, Sec. 3. So, with that, the Commission has to look at the factual and legal findings the Director found, and if the decision is supported by the record, the Commission must find that there is substantial evidence to support that decision, even if the record would also support a different conclusion. So what the state is saying is that regardless, the information and the facts and the evidence that were submitted to the Commission, the Director found that the steward's ruling should be sustained. And because the evidence is sufficient and substantial to support that finding, the Commission should in fact affirm the Director's finding. Now, to support that, evidence was presented by both appellant and the state to the Director for his review. And the Director has the sole ability to determine the credibility of witnesses. It is a matter peculiarly within the province of the trier of fact in an administrative hearing. This was an administrative hearing, the Director was acting as such. So his determination on credibility of witnesses was his to make. Based upon all of the evidence and the information that was presented to the Director, he made a determination about all of that evidence, all of those witnesses, and made a determination based upon that. Now, appellant has argued to the Commission that he failed to receive appropriate due process. And it is correct that a licensee has a property interest in his license. The state must afford due process before it can curtail that right. Due process requires notice and an opportunity to be heard in a meaningful manner and in a meaningful time. There was a scheduled hearing. Appellant was represented by counsel. He presented witnesses of his own and evidence of his own. He was also able to cross-examine all witnesses submitted by the state. Now, appellant suggests that because he was supposed to be not provided the information, that he was somehow, I believe the word was sandbagged as far as what the hearing occurred. If appellant wanted to obtain a more definitive statement, the detailed statement, ARS 40.1061B4 affords that opportunity, where a demand can be made or a request can be made to the department for a more detailed and definitive statement as to what had been furnished in the notice of hearing. Appellant chose not to do that. Further, appellant makes the argument that he was blindsided with new witnesses and statements. This matter is not a criminal matter. It is not governed by the rules of criminal procedure. It's not governed by the rules of evidence. So there is nothing that has been presented to the commission to indicate that somehow the department was required to provide information to appellant that he had not requested. Appellant could have contacted the department to find out what information or what documents were going to be presented in the hearing. He chose not to do so. Appellant could have reached out to myself to find out what information or what witnesses were going to be presented. He chose not to do so. In the hearing, when this was brought up, the typical procedure for receiving any type of document from a public agency is through a public records request. No public records request was received by appellant, so no documents were provided to him. This is not a violation of due process. The appellant was afforded his ability for due process. And the state would recommend and request that the commission deny the appellant's motion here, that in fact the appropriate action was taken and the director's findings should be sustained. So the right to pursue a profession is subject to the paramount right of the state under its police powers to regulate business and professions in order to protect the public health, morals, and welfare. Evidence was presented to the director that indicated that there was something that had happened on the backside, that the director was able to weigh the evidence and the credibility of witnesses presented to him, and from there found that a violation of the rule had occurred. The director also received information concerning appellant's prior history, which included similar behaviors. Now, based upon the information that the director was provided, he was absolutely within his statutory right to refuse to issue a license to a person if it is not in the best interest of the safety, welfare, economy, health, and peace of the people of the state. And that's set forth in 5108A, parent 1, parent H. With that, the director found appropriately...
10 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. That the appellant's license should be denied. We would ask the commission to sustain the director's finding. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carey, your final remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the word was probably ambushed is probably a better word. And while this may not be a criminal matter, I believe that if the chairman and the committee members had heard this proceeding, it was the equivalent of a junior high school, we don't like him. And in fact, what my client's behavior was in self-defense, that's what the hearing brought out, was all of these issues with people that really had huge biases. If the Attorney General is compared to any of my regulatory hearings and practice in this state and other states, the Zlacket rules were passed in the 90s. It is never, ever, in my experience, have I ever had an Attorney General sandbag a petitioner in the way that took place. Nonetheless, the due process issues and my client's right to work his trade has been hampered by the lack of due process, the lack of openness, the lack of the ability to prepare for a meeting that brought in well over a half a dozen individuals that we had never even heard about and were not part of this matter. In fact, the one incident that was involved that brought the Stewart meeting to light was barely even touched on. The rest was all about issues were 30 years ago. My client had no due process in this matter, and that's all he's asking for is a fair hearing and a fair shot at being able to practice his trade. Even if the AG had even reached out or said or told us that this was what the hearing was going to be like, we would have reached an agreement. My client is now not able to practice anywhere because of the decision that was made when he did not have a fair right and notice of all of these individuals that were brought for a meeting and a hearing that had nothing to do with what happened on the back lot. We would ask the board to find in Mr. Smith's favor on this matter in light of the fact that even the AG has indicated in her own statement that they gave us nothing. They just proceeded with all of these surprise witnesses and all of these surprise issues when notice is required, and notice was not given other than a date and a time on the issue that we believed we were appearing on, and in fact, we were appearing on multiple issues that were never given any notice. That's what my client is asking for the board to do.
Thank you, ma'am. Having reviewed the director's order, the administrative record, listened to the arguments from the parties, the commission will now discuss its decision. No further comment from the parties will be heard while the commission deliberates. If any of my other commissioners have anything to say before I give my 2 cents, well, I'll just start it off. It sounds to me like the evidence just supports the director's order. The appellant has a significant and substantial history in violations. The due process, to me, sounded like it happened accordingly. And frankly, with that, I don't see how we can approve the appellant's appeal. But I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners for any other comments.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, having listened to everything, one thing I found lacking today was any disputing of the findings of fact, which is what the director based his decision on. And again, we're here today just to either uphold or deny the director's ruling, and I did not hear anything disputing any of the findings of fact that the director had come to. So that's kind of my standing here.
I would like to maybe make a motion to enter executive session for a brief question.
That's you made a motion?
Yes.
Yes. I'll second it. The chair can have it.
Okay, having a motion by Ms. Olson, seconded by Mr. Coolidge. Roll call, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. It is 12:47. We will go into recess for executive session, and this is executive session number, I believe, hang on, sorry for the record. This would be number 4. And again, time is 12:47. And bring this back up again. Thank you. Thank you. We are reconvening the open session of the Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place via Google Meets. And this is Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. This is the 5th open session. For purposes of quorum, I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay?
Present.
Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. The time is 12:59. Mr. Coolidge, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. The final issue for discussion is the commission's order. The commission may make a motion to accept the director's order or may modify it or reject it. Now is the time for the commission to make a motion and deliberate. If there is a motion on the ready, I can make one, or would be happy to hear one.
You need
that said, I'll go ahead and I'm going to motion to deny the appeal and affirm the director's decision.
I will second that.
Actually, I'm going to amend that.
Okay. I will pull my second.
Deny the appeal and affirm the director's decision based on the records and the arguments from the parties I move that the commission deny the appeal and affirm the director's order in this case.
Second.
Thank you. Having a motion and a second to affirm to deny the appeal and to affirm the director's decision based on the record and the arguments of the parties, I'll perform the roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move over to item E2, permit renewal hearing for Turf Paradise Racing LLC. And that's a consideration of a 3-year permit. Does the department want to speak on this at all?
This is Mr. Estrada. I just want to make sure to reiterate that all the paperwork was turned in a timely fashion. Both Mr. Johnson and employees gave me all the information that was required. Anything that I requested was, again, turned in expeditiously without any hiccups. Both reports, we have an internal report in our Linscott, which is our outside source. There was no derogatory comments or anything that raised the red flag as far as financials and any other document that was requested for their permit.
Chair Coolidge, if I may.
The floor is yours, Commissioner.
Mr. Estrada, have you at this point, or do you plan on conducting an inspection in conjunction with this renewal?
As far as the facility inspection, that would probably be in the future as the race meet comes in, if this gets approved.
Thank you.
Commissioner Garay, you have any comments?
Just the one, and I do believe this kind of goes along with Commissioner Olson's comment. I do believe that if approved, the department would be doing inspections and would require the track to take care of any issues that they find. Mr. Estrada, is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Commissioner. We would definitely make sure that the facility is in compliance. We would probably make something as a track safety report and maybe report it to the commission for your approval if that's what you are seeking.
Yes, I would like, and actually for all our tracks going forward, to have something like that every month we get information that, if we had to, we could take action if the department needed help on those type of things.
Sorry, guys, I'm reviewing the speaking charts. It looks like Mr. Nolan, are you able to speak? Mr. Napier?
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Do you still need to speak? If so, we can allocate 3 minutes.
No, I don't need 3 minutes, but I will say that inspection is important, and safe and clean is critical, so we can have a industry and sport that everyone is proud of, and a facility that we can be proud of and want people to go to, and a facility that people want to go to. Here are the regulators, and I suggest it might be appropriate for yourselves to make the inspection. Hold up the photographs that you've been supplied and find out if that is actually the reality that is being depicted there. So I urge that. That's the sum of my comments. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I agree with what you're saying. Also, if you are unmuted, please make sure you're muting your phone so we're not catching the feedback. Okay. Looks like we had a comment. For some reason, the gentleman could not get on the line here, but his comment reads, I respectfully request clarification to the current status of the permit of Turf Paradise Racing LLC. To date, I am not aware of a temporary permit being granted by the commission. The last request for a temporary was granted on July 12, 2019. It had an expiration date, which occurred, and then the commission granted a full permit to Turf Paradise Racing, R19-2-103.E.4, in addition to the ARS Title 5, Chapter 1, which is referenced. That's ARS 5-107.01. Just shorthand on that, a person, association, or corporation shall not hold any racing meeting without having first obtained and having in full force and effect a permit that is issued by the department. I requested a comment from the department to make sure that we had this answered correctly. The department started the turf investigation in late April, and the administration admin complete letter was issued on August 4th, 2021. The division is now prepared to have the commission approve their permit, bypassing the issuance of a temporary permit as the investigation was expedited due to Turf Paradise's timely submission of all the documentation. So I hope that answers his question, and we can move forward there. That said, I would be happy to hear a motion or comments from my fellow commissioners on the renewal permit hearing, or executive session if needed.
Just waiting to see if Ms. Olson needs an executive session. I do not.
I do not. Thank you.
All right. With that said, I would move to approve the permit renewal for TP Racing LLC for the years of 2021, 2022, and 2023. Second.
Okay, excuse me, having a motion by Mr. Garay and seconded by Mr. Coolidge to approve the permit for years 2021, 2022, and 2023 for TP Racing LLP. I'll do the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, excuse me, that motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move over to the F1 track safety reports. Mr. Bates.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. My name is Gary Bays. I am one of the state stewards for the Arizona Department of Gaming Racing Division. And the safety report for this month of July is for July, in which racing took place at Arizona Downs, is mostly weather related. There were torrential rains in Prescott Valley a couple different times in July, resulting in morning training being canceled on a few occasions. But fortunately, the main storms happened on off days, and track superintendent Vic Oliver and his staff were able to get the track condition back in shape on race days, so no race days were missed in July. Also, we had some very warm days in July, and Arizona Downs staff personnel provided water buckets up and down the paths leading from the track to the paddock and back for the horses to be cooled off with, and bottles of water for the grooms. There were also hoses on the paths to cool the horses with, and on the approach to the paddock and near the finish line. We had no safety-related complaints in regards to the backside facilities or the rest of the Arizona Downs facilities. That's July's report. But I would additionally like to report that yesterday, August 11th, was another matter. After the third race, and while the horses were in the saddling paddock, a lightning rainstorm settled in over Arizona Downs. The horses were sheltered in the paddock, in the stalls, and after several minutes, when it did not appear there was going to be a break in the weather anytime soon, the Board of Stewards met with Arizona Downs General Manager Mike Weiss and HPPA Representative Leroy Guessman, and it was agreed upon to cancel the remainder of the race card due to the severe weather for the safety of the horses, jockeys, outriders, and grooms. And that's the safety report. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Guessman, I see you have your hand raised. Do you want to add that to your report or speak immediately?
I'd like to just add this right now, Commissioner Coolidge. Leroy Guessman, the Arizona HPPA, as he mentioned yesterday and Tuesday, we had tremendous thunderstorms up here during the races. And I just wanted to commend the stewards, the track superintendent, and Mike Weiss They did an excellent job of altering post times, working around the lightning. Stuart Bays has a lightning detector on his phone, and he was constantly watching that, making sure everything was safe. And I just want to say everybody worked together well, and it went very smoothly, and I wanted to thank the stewards for their part in that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the input. I would also like to say I appreciate Arizona Downs, not only because you're almost to the end of your season, but hearing the positive safety reports and making sure that that's a priority. I know I can speak for the whole commission when I say I appreciate that, and it's a priority for the department as well as the commission.
Mr. Comment? Yeah, I would just like to add, I was up there last week. Unfortunately, it was on one of the days that was a little toasty, but it was the water that was put out for the horses was really great to see. And I would just like to say there was a little incident in the morning, and I really appreciate the outstanding professionalism of everybody involved, the outriders, the person driving the van, to take care of that horse. Great job, everyone. You're professionals. Much appreciated. I know you didn't act that way just because I was there. I know that's the way you act all the time. Thank you.
We'll move on to the budget report. Mr. LaForest.
Chairman, Commissioners, I don't believe I've spoken with you this fiscal year, so I'll just give a brief update on last year. We completed the fiscal year well within our budget. I know we had some concerns about our revenue due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Fortunately, we were able to offset with lower costs that impact, and we ended the year roughly in the same financial shape that we began with. Going forward to this fiscal year, the Division of Racing basically has 4 appropriations. 2 are the standard operating appropriation, and then we fund the Breeders' Award Program, the SLI. There are 2 new appropriations, however, each for a amount of $5 million. And one of these pots of money is for purse enhancements, and the other one is for racetrack purse enhancements, maintenance, and operation costs, which will be distributed to certain beneficiaries and permittees around Arizona. We're currently working with JLBC to understand the intentions and the restrictions we can put on this money. But the idea to disperse those monies will happen on a quarterly basis. So when we have a better idea of what kind of reporting requirements the commission we would like to have on these monies, we'll give you another update going forward.
Thank you. I would very much like to keep a watchful eye on those dollars and make sure they're getting used appropriately. So if you could make sure that's priority, I'd appreciate it.
Will do.
Move to F4, COVID-19 protocols. Director Casillas.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just want to inform the Commission that with the COVID-19 variant coming back into play, we want to make sure that all the permittees and licensees are prepared depending on how this COVID progresses, that we may have to reinstate some of the COVID protocols at the tracks for live racing. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention that we're keeping a close watch on the numbers. Maricopa County is starting to increase again. So I just wanted to let the Commission know that.
Yes, sir. It's unfortunate, but unfortunately, I feel like that's the right thing to do, so thank you. Move to F5, permittee reports. American Greyhound Racing.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, we don't have any update this month. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Arizona Downs.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, this is Mike Weiss from Arizona Downs. I am happy to report that the race meet is going well. We have some short fields, but we're very competitive with our racing. I did get to run into, as Mr. Bay said, my first monsoon yesterday, and that was interesting. We lost 5 races, but it was a joint decision made between management and our state steward for safety concerns. We have 2 students working for us as interns, Giselle Lugo from the U of A, Racetrack Industry Program, and Jacob Bogdan from Arizona State. It's nice having a little mix of both, and they've been getting their feet wet in the industry, assisting racing officials, on-air handicappers, doing the racing office. Giselle does the program layouts and the ads and the inserts and writes bios about the other officials, so, to be informative. We do have a horse at the race meet that's bringing us national attention. A 9-year-old named 691 is the winningest horse in the country with 11 wins in 2021, 5 of them right here at the race meeting. And on a positive note, I am happy to report through our first 22 days of racing, comparing the Arizona Downs average daily handle per day is up 54.4% versus the meet in 2019. The national average at this time in the same time period is 24.12, so we're actually outperforming the national trend by over 2 times. Thank you.
Outstanding. County fairs? Mr. Weiss, we need to just / Arizona Downs and Rito, but you're back up.
That was quick. Yep. Okay, well, again, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, since there are some new people here, I'd like to speak a little bit about the Rito Park Foundation. It is a 501c3 not-for-profit. It's a group of local businessmen that are trying to save the historic racetrack. It was the birthplace of quarter horse racing, and they've restored the Jelk Stud Barn, which is the first quarter horse breeding farm. They do this for the history and for the city of Tucson, as it actually, for those of you who have been there, know that it draws 5,000 to 6,000 people on a race day, and the demographics are just fantastic. It's a lot of fun. Our plan is to apply for dates in the spring as normal and keep our relationship going with the University of Arizona, where they have the Racetrack Industry Program, which has been in place since the 70s. We hire students from the program, from the Racetrack Industry Program school, from the journalism school, and from the vet school.
We lost your audio, sir.
Okay, where did you lose me? I apologize.
Vet school.
Okay, we hired from the vet school. We've been able to implement a lot of new actions for safety protocols that a lot of tracks, even large tracks around the country, have reached to us to follow. We're actually associated with the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences to the point where we were given so many students experience, and then I started helping, or had industry leaders reach out, and we've helped these students get jobs in the industry, that I was personally asked by the dean and officially was stepped into faculty at the U of A in a role titled as career coordinator and counselor. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Move to Tucson Greyhound Park.
Alicia had to leave, so you can skip to the next one.
I thought I saw her take off. Turf Paradise.
Chairman Coolidge, Commissioner Vincent Franchi at Turf Paradise. Let me start out with COVID, things that Mr. Casillas was addressing, but I want to wrap up on that when I come to the end. The one thing I want to say at the start is the same thing I'm going to say at the conclusion. The door to my office is open from Mr. Hutton and Mr. Guestman or whatever horsemen are representing the HPPA to come in and talk about whatever they want to talk about. That's how I want to begin this. That's how I'm going to conclude it. I've known both of these gentlemen for some time. I respect the amount of time and dedication they put into representing their horsemen. I also appreciate Mr. Hutman's sense of humor from time to time, always welcome. But I really don't think they want to, in any way, not have a race meet for the horsemen they represent of 125 days, of over $100 grand a day in purses, 5 days a week from November the 5th to the Derby on May the 7th. Let me tell you what we're doing. The indictment pictures that were shown earlier, which I now understand are on that great forum of free speech, Facebook. If those photos were shown 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, it would show the same thing. At this time during the race meet, nothing is being done. Everything I'm doing right now is predicated on I have 54 days left. And that's how much time that I have to get ready for the race meet. So everything from taking out weeds to dressing the paddock to doing all the other more important things are on a time schedule. Right now, the crew is in the stable area cleaning that up. The most important thing on the list for us is safety. That's one thing we're all in agreement about, and it has to do with the main track. And a firm came out Monday, and it's under the direction of our turf course consultant, John Hubbs, who also builds main tracks, as to what you're going to do. And it's basically they're going to take the cushion, what's called the cushion of the track up, and get down to the base, the limestone base. That's the first thing that has to be examined to see if it's in good condition, has damage occurred, whatever. And then we move forward from there with this firm. It's going to take a week's worth of work as they calibrate the front stretch and back stretch to certain percentages and the two turns. The one challenge we're dealing with in regards to that will come in the future, and that is the number 10 mesh sand that we use. I was advised by the Sovereign Nation, the Gila Indians that supply this sand that come September, they are going to discontinue distributing it. So we're going to have to bulk up on the sand to get through the race meet. But right now the most important thing is the main track to make sure it's safe. I know it's on everybody's list of things to do. Generally, during the last meet, I kept the horsemen updated via the website, the Arizona Horsemen's website. And the reason why I've stayed off of it is out of respect for Arizona Downs. They are conducting a race meet, and I think that space should be used for them to do their dialogues and maintaining information with their horsemen. As things get closer, I will begin again to update the horsemen on everything we're doing. But to be taking pictures of weeds or things that need to be painted, all of which are going to be done, and putting them out there as some sort of means of making this look bad, it's like, guys, you're getting a little silly out there. Hell, you know where my office is. Most of you know my cell phone. I'm here 12 to 14 hours a day, and will continue to be so until we open on November 5th. Back to COVID. COVID is going to govern everything that any business does, and that includes the racetrack here. At this time, at this point, I was not going to reinitiate the protocols we used last year. That being said, let me hasten to add, all those protocols are in place that we can act quickly if things worsen in the COVID situation or the variant situation. The other thing I'm considering doing, a couple of the racetracks are already doing it, is you cannot mandate vaccinations. That just gets into a realm of all kinds of things about freedom and getting away from the health component. But strongly recommending that everybody be vaccinated. Those that choose, for whatever the reasons, not to be vaccinated, they will be required to be tested weekly. Have not implemented it. It's something we are considering. And again, we're closely monitoring this COVID situation. Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to speak. Questions, I would be happy to answer if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. We will move to the Industry Stakeholder Association updates, Arizona counties. Arizona Quarter Horse, Arizona Thoroughbred, HBPA.
Yes, this is Bob Hutton. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. Bob Hutton, President of Arizona HBPA. First, I'd like to, I appreciate Mr. Francia's kind words, but as far as that's concerned, as far as getting things done in his open door, he's got a boss he has to answer to, and I've got a board I have to answer to. So we're really not, him and I are not in the position to make solid decisions unless we go to our own people and get approval. So I just wanted everybody to understand that. I want to thank Peterson for contributing today. I believe when, I hope I pronounce his name right, Mr. LaForest made a comment about the $5 million in the budget that's there for track safety and for purse enhancement. I do think, and maybe the commission could take this under consideration or talk to Mr. Casillas about this, I do believe it would be a good investment to hire somebody like Nick Peterson that doesn't have a biased opinion to oversee the tracks in the entire state, while I also think that some of that money might well be used as far as hiring safety stewards, because I understand that Mr. Casillas is working with a skeleton crew, and I don't think it's fair to try to do a job without the right people or the right equipment. I'd also like to correct Mr. Claus when he implied that if Turf Paradise shut down, there wouldn't be a year-round racing. I respect Mr. Claus. I think he's an articulate man. I think he's smart, but I don't think he has a crystal ball. And I do think that the Arizona HPPA has all the plans to run year-round. Also wanted to go ahead and address the statement that Mr. Sims said when he talked about the Monarch situation. We went ahead and Mr. Guessman emailed Vince Francia, told him that was off the table, and I told Vince on the phone that was off the table. So that's not really an issue. The points are is that out of the 20 that Mr. Fleming referred to, of the 24 on the list, are safety issues. And that's our biggest concern. The L row in the back should be torn down. It's not humane to put horses in there. And the other thing is too, and I'm going to say this because I'm very supportive of the Hispanic community, and a lot of the people back there are Hispanic that work with the horses. The living quarters are atrocious. And Mr. Garay being a lover of dogs, I wouldn't allow my dog to sleep in there. So I think that's important that is looked at as far as the conditions, not only of the equine athletes, but the humans that live back there and take care of the horses. And my question would also go to Mr. Sims is, why would he put any money into the track if he's got it up for sale? I don't know what his motivation would be as far as trying to market the racetrack. And we want to run. I mean, I just got to tell you, we want to run, and we want to run at Turf Paradise. But we have to do it under a safe condition, and that the track is in good order, maintained year-round, and the turf course in the same order. And so we're asking for anything, and I think the commissioners got to ask themselves one question. Why would people be willing to drive an hour and 15 minutes up a hill every day to go to another race meet instead of 15 minutes close to their house? There's something to be said for that. So with that being said, I will let you gentlemen and ladies know that the HPPA will do everything in our power to sit down and talk to Mr. Francia and see if we can work out some kind of contractual agreement that we can all agree on as far as the safety for the horses and the people at the racetrack. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hutton. I think that's exactly what I was going to be suggesting, is you getting with the department and having a sit down. We need to get everybody on the same page, whether it be health, safety, and just overall well-being in the industry. So if you can make that a priority, Mr. Mayor, if you can make that a priority on your end, I know the rest of the commission would appreciate the gesture. And hope that we can get a resolution to what you're looking for.
I hear your words, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last one is Jockeys Guild.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this is Darrell here with the Jockeys Guild. And I'm supportive, again, as I stated earlier, with Arizona HPPA and what they're requesting. And a lot of it is pertaining to jockeys, of course. And my concern is the jockeys room. That's being sanitized the way it should. That's an old jockeys room, and I have, with this COVID, it just seems like Jerry Vincent Francia and I were speaking last year about this time, and there's just so much that has to be completed in a short period of time at Turf Paradise. So I'm willing to work anything I can do to be of any aid with this open letter that Jerry sent to the horsemen. I believe the jockeys are horsemen too. And we need to be involved just so we can help in any way. With the track surface and material, that concerns me right now, because we've always had to have good material and right away. So I know things have to happen soon. So hopefully, my hope again is that the horsemen's groups get together and get this resolved so we can move forward for the good of Arizona racing. And
thank you, sir.
Hard-working backstretch workers that put on the show. So thank you. Appreciate the time.
We'll move to G1, commission reports. Anybody have anything they'd like to add?
No, sir.
Nothing from you.
Move to items on future agendas.
Would like to, since safety has become a topic again, or has never really gone away, but one of the things I am a little disheartened that has not been brought back up again is, not last year, but I think it was the previous year, there was, and I know the jockeys were coming to me and saying, we need this rule implemented. It was the claiming rule. And I know Turf Paradise and the horsemen, they all came together and they came up with the claiming rule, but unfortunately, it got struck down because claiming rules are written in statute. And I believe it was a very good rule. It would have helped with the safety of the horses, and I would like to find out what can we do to get the moratorium lifted to work on some safety rules for the horses and the horsemen. Okay, we're going on another season, going to be opening up here soon, and if we got something we can do that's safety, it doesn't affect business. It was just strictly safety of the horses and the horsemen and women in the backside.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are in the process of looking at the rules to rewrite a lot of the old rules and make modifications for the betterment of racing. And you're correct that there has been a moratorium on rule writing, and there's certain criteria that they will authorize exemption from. But we are preparing to look at the rules and make modifications so that we can seek that authority to move forward.
We're going on another season. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to call to the public. I don't have anybody signed up to speak.
I have not received any other requests during the meeting, sir.
Okay, and then we'll just jump to announcements. The next regularly scheduled commission meeting will be 10 a.m. on Thursday, September 9th, 2021, likely on Google Meet. And I would hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Having a motion to adjourn in second, roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. It's 1:33 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.